So welcome to the Node.js Next 10 meeting for October 25th, 2023. We will get started by seeing, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? If not, let's move on to the agenda items. The first one is the next deep dive. We did have a bit of a discussion on that last time. And I think we agreed to focus more on the sort of like non-technical side of things. The need from the community and the multiple paths to corporate support were some of the things that we have on the list. I don't know if there's anything too much we should chat about this week. I think we need to set up some time, or maybe we could take some time, although Jean had made some of these suggestions, to go through and define what the next deep dive should be in terms of what we want to collect and so forth. I do see Joe commented as well that I think along the similar thoughts of it would be good to, in terms of the growing collaborators and getting new people involved and stuff like that, is again, sort of the non-technical side is the one that seems the most interesting to sort of focus on at this point. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts. I mean, I'm not sure it's something we should do in this meeting specifically, but I don't know what people think. No thoughts?
I do kind of want to do deep dive sort of thing on diagnostic stuff at some point when I actually have free time.
Yeah, no, okay. So did we did one at one point, I think, but it's certainly could be time to do another one, like a state of where things are at. And so yeah, I'd say just when you're at the point where you think that makes sense, then add it to the agenda, create an issue, and we can sort of figure out how we schedule that.
Yeah. I've got a talk coming up at NoConf.eu that is basically explaining how tracers work. That can probably steal some of that content.
Okay.
So yeah. Also, after the async local storage rewrite, I think it'll be a good time to start more so encouraging people to use that and diagnostics channel as well, and kind of have a little more of a cohesive vision of here's how you do tracing diagnostic sort of things in Node.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I guess, and how do we evangelize that, get the message out, and
yeah,
what assets I guess would be good to help support that and everything. Okay, no, I mean, that's a good one. I think otherwise, the other suggestions were to focus on the more non-technical stuff. So we'll probably try and schedule one of those as well. But I think those other ones, we thought we had a bit of work to do before we did that. Certainly, I think one of them was what does the project need from the foundation, that we wanted to put some sort of come up with some stuff first before we actually, did a deep dive with a larger group of people. And I think similar to the other one was, we want, in terms of figuring out what would take to help companies support the project. Again, we needed some sort of background work on that too. Okay, anything else we should discuss on that one? If not, okay. The next one is collaboration summit technical priorities. I think that's one just in terms to remind us to update the boards. And I think last time Jean was going to double check that could be closed. So I don't see it's been closed yet. So we'll leave it on the agenda just until he confirms. I think corporate support and contribution, we were kind of thinking the next steps on that one is a deep dive, that was to organize a deep dive, is actually, well, it was to start, I think, to try and, did we take a note in there? I don't think so.
Can we do something as an organization to try and highlight a little more of the, like that there's like Joey got called out the other day for like, yeah, all the like stuff she's been doing lately, like it, and like that's like sponsored by Bloomberg. Like it would be good if we can like as a foundation call that out a little more, put some focus on that. It's like if we are like essentially advertising that, like,
right, yep,
it's going to make contributing more appealing for companies. So like we can use this as like a banner ad, basically.
right. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. How do you have ideas in terms of what kind of, like, is it tweets from the Node.js account? Is it something else? Or like how to, any thoughts on what the best way that happens?
I mean, like there's lots of like different levels you could do that at. Like could be as simple as like, oh yeah, we just like make a tweet similar to like I think it was Daniel tweeted about like the Bloomberg sponsorship. Like we could just retweet that from the official Node account, or we could like make our own like equivalent of that, or we could do something more in depth where we had like contributor highlights sort of thing or something. I thought at one point that like it would be interesting to have like a contributor highlights blog, or like I don't know, video content or something. I don't know, just like
right,
semi regularly focus on like, oh yeah, this quarter like these people did some cool things. Let's talk about it a bit.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe we can try to consolidate that in a single page. Well, a single place, like can be, I don't know, the website or whatever, the same way like you have these awesome whatever repositories on GitHub where the people consolidate a lot of resources about something specific. So I think maybe we can do something like that with and I think also with the content, like in the recent change of Node or blog posts that the core members are doing and stuff from that direction. So people can see like, oh, this is super accurate and super relevant, kind of approved by Node thing content. So I think that way we can promote a lot, and having a section for that specifically, like understanding why sponsorship is important, and you have a bunch of resources of this, because I think the problem of just moving it on Twitter or on social media is like there's a bunch of things ongoing all the time in social media, so you might get some attention at one point, but later on, if in 3 months a company is looking for that, it's hard for us to just make that message appearing for them. So that way maybe we can consolidate something for the long term.
And how difficult would it be to like split out the Node blog to have a little more categorization? Because like right now it's basically like a single channel, but there's actually like a couple different types in there. Like it's almost exclusively just like release announcements, but then there's like a handful of security release things. Like if we could split it into, there's like categories, like this is like release announcement, this is security releases, this is like contributor highlights.
Yep.
That would be something probably to ask in the website side. I mean, in terms of like you're thinking different tabs in the website, like right now there's like a news tab, right?
It's like as a subsection of the news tab. It's like we could break that up into categories. It's like we currently don't. It's just one continuous stream. like technically they do actually seem to have like there's like /en/blog/release, and then some of them are like
Yeah, they go into
/in/blog
different directories.
Yeah, but there's like in the UI, there's no actual like separation of them. So if
I'm just
we
wondering
have-
what you're thinking that would look like in terms of like a different, filter or different boxes on the header or.
and like at the top of the news list page or something like that, like you could have like a one like the main page is just list everything, and then you can have
Yeah.
like little boxes for each of the like different subcategories within that. Like if you want to zoom into a particular purpose, you can.
Yeah, like a way to filter down to specific ones.
Yeah. Yeah, just like there's currently not actually any visibility that there's actually like any separation to these apart from like if you look at the URL. But yeah, that's kind of like getting a bit into implementation details. But yeah, general idea. Let's have like a contributor highlights thing of some sort.
So the contributor highlights blog post on Node.js.org versus OpenJS's blog post. I forget where they post.
There's like a Medium blog or something. As far as I know, I don't know if there's anything other than that.
I think this is what they use now. I'm just asking because like that would be one of the natural questions that they'll have is like.
Yeah. I think that's not that's not going to be as visible.
Right. Okay.
Like if we have it like on the Node.js website, then like companies, they want to invest in Node.js, like they're not necessarily even going to be aware of like OpenJS Foundation exists or what it's responsible for or any of this sort of thing. So like having a blog post on there, they might not even notice.
Okay. I'm just like, I think Kylie mentioned that from the foundation that they were thinking like a contributor highlight or something series could make sense.
Okay.
So maybe, we could fit this in. Like it's kind of like, this is kind of one of the things we were talking about, like in the deep dives, was like putting together the list of what we would like to have support for from the foundation.
Yeah.
And I could see one of the asks being like we'd like a quarterly, contributor highlight. And, whoever would, somehow the project would need to nominate that person. And then, do we have a volunteer to write it up, or should we, ask for foundation support in terms of writing that up?
Yeah. Yeah. We could also like replicate between the two blogs. Could be in both places.
Yeah, it could be posted in both, right? Like, or front site or both, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. It's more posting it probably isn't all that hard. It's more the, getting the content and writing it.
Yeah. But yeah, my thinking for structure was kind of like you can just like focus on like the projects they did in that quarter, like leading up to there or something, and like do like a little interview with the contributor or something like that.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like what kind of things you've been working on, and
put a little highlight onto it, just like there's a person behind this, and for the like corporate sponsorship benefits, like just happen to have one of the things is, and this person works for X.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Thanks for the support from blah 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 for being able to make all this work happen. Yeah, I mean, that definitely sounds like a concrete thing. And it would be, I definitely agree. It would be nice to have more sort of recognition of collaborators' work. That's sort of the trying to capture more of that information is through the work that Ulysses did, like on the feed and stuff. This fits into that as well. But I've taken notes that that's a concrete one that we can probably open an issue and see if we can. It's really just a matter of who's going to put it together. I think asking, there seemed to be some interest there, so maybe we can open an issue and ask if the foundation can help doing that quarterly. It makes sense. Anything else on that one we should chat about?
No, well, yep. Yeah, there's like kind of different levels of like corporate, like there's like corporate support and contribution, which can mean like a bunch of things. But yeah, there's like financial contribution, which honestly not actually hugely helpful. It's more like people time that we would really benefit from, I think. And to convince companies to like invest people time, like whether it be like their own or like in the case of Bloomberg, they like contracted it Igalia, like making it more visible, like what are the things that we want, and like we've kind of gone back and forth in the past on like having a roadmap and like these sorts of things. But yeah, like if we can have like a little more clarity for like companies are going to have their own things that will be useful to them, and a lot of times they'll just reach for a thing in userland to do that, or build their own thing in userland to do that, or build their own thing as like a private tool to do that. But if we have like some expression in like our documentation or something somewhere that's like, yeah, this is the thing that we're open to existing in Node Core, if someone puts in the effort to do it.
Yeah, our technical priorities were an effort to, at some level, define that, right?
Yeah.
Which we have documented in the project. I don't know if we're ever going to get to the point where it's like, here's a list of concrete things that we've agreed in a prioritized order, right? I'd kind of be happy to have that, but I guess we could, yeah. I don't know if we've ever thought of making like a wish list, or because like a roadmap's difficult because we don't have resources to say, yeah, let's actually work on this roadmap. But like a wish list wouldn't be terrible. Might be.
Like there's kind of been a bit of like there's been a bit of friction with like we have certain technical priorities, like following web standards to some degree, but it's a bit lacking in clarity of, okay, but to what degree? And so like there's a lot of times like someone will go and implement some web standard thing, and then a bunch of people will be arguing like, well, this is like a browser thing, but like, does it actually make sense in Node? Even though like we've said we want to adopt web standards, like, do we want to adopt this particular web standard? Like, there's
it says in where it makes sense, right?
This like this debate like always comes up, even though we've already like tried to make it clear. But like, if we can be like a little more specific about like, oh yeah, like this is like the list of web standards, like we would definitely at least be open to like we can list some things like WebSocket support, like like I'm sure we would be open to someone adding a WebSocket server if someone took like the time and effort to actually build a good one. Just no one has. But like
I'm not
adding
sure. I'd
it,
have to look at there's an issue that was opened.
yeah. Like
Anyway,
adding something like WebGL or something, like we're probably not going to have that in Node Core because like it makes somewhat less sense.
so that almost sounds to me like a deep dive. Right? Like if there was a deep dive on like what ones do we to see if we could build some sort of consensus on these make sense, these don't make sense. That's
Yeah.
kind of I think but I think I think it would take a champion to say like I'm going to put together a list and that we can go through and lead the discussion on each of them.
Yeah,
And
just
that would make a good deep dive.
just deciding like specific, what web specs or like general features of a language that like this is the thing we want to have, we just haven't done. It's like we have testing now. Do we want to have like a benchmark tool built in? Maybe. Like there's lots of these things. Like we could at least say like yes, we're open to this, or like no, that's definitely not a thing we ever want to do. Like we in a lot of cases can't necessarily provide like a yes for sure we will land exactly the thing that you write, because maybe the thing you write is not any good or doesn't
Sure.
really like work with the rest of the system. Who knows? But at least like acceptance of a general pattern, I think would be helpful, just to like guide the people that are not already like very embedded in the core. It's not really clear what direction things are going and what things are available to work on.
Yeah, do you think that's what stops companies from letting their people contribute? Or I think it's a good idea to if we could get more agreement on those. I'm just wondering if it's actually related to the corporate support part.
Yes and no. I think like the core of it is companies, like it's hard for them to it's a like cost benefit analysis thing. It's hard for them to know like how much effort is it going to take for us to basically convince the like other contributors that a thing that we build is sufficient to land. And like the more clarity we can provide on like yes, like this is a feature we want, that cuts a lot of the unknowns out of that cost. Like it doesn't cut all of the unknowns out of it, but like the more that we can, like the more uncertainty that we can remove from the benefit of contributing, the better.
Yeah, I guess what I'm hearing is like from your perspective, companies are more likely to contribute on specific features than actually just keeping the project going. And if we could make it clear that like, hey, their personal interest in a particular feature would be supported, then they're more likely to jump in, right?
Yeah. So unfortunately, yeah, a lot of companies, they'll have like their pet feature. They want
Right.
this like specific thing, and they're gonna commit the resources to build this, and then possibly kind of disappear, which is not ideal. But I mean, we can have a feature or not have a feature. So like once they're kind of in the door though, then like we can figure out how to convince them to stay and like continue maintaining things. And like maintenance is like a little bit of a harder sell. Like
It's just that's where we struggle. Somebody's got to do that maintenance, right? Nobody
yeah,
seems to want to support it.
yeah,
But without that, you got nothing. So,
yeah. So yeah, like if we can find some ways to better sell the maintenance part, like that would definitely be a huge advantage. But yeah, um, like in the case of Datadog, one of the things that's like we kind of struggle with is like a lot of our user base is using like already end of life versions of Node or like close to end of life versions of Node, and so like they're not getting the like bug fixes or things like that that's the newer release lines are getting. And it's like what one of the things that we've kind of discussed a bit is like if we were more actively involved in releases, would we be able to make a compelling case for like extending the LTS window or something like that? Like the reason the LTS window is the length it is because that's how much capacity we have to like put in the effort to do all this backporting and stuff. But like if there's people that are like, yeah, no, we're gonna do that, that's covered, then like that window could maybe be longer. Like there's things like that like we could.
Yeah, those are interesting. Like,
Hmm.
like as a concrete example, the active versus maintenance phase has shifted over time to be less active and more maintenance because of not having people to do the work. And so the trend has been, you know, for even the ones in LTS to get less of the updates, more of just the critical updates because of the number of, you know, I think if there were more people available, that trend would not have necessarily have happened.
Yeah.
The LTS one is interesting in that, like, there's some things like the older versions of V8, the older OpenSSLs, those are sometimes like harder to work around, right? Like the OpenS, you know, 16 being shortened because of OpenSSL. I don't know if more people, like, it would be like somebody having to say, hey, well, we'll maintain a version, we'll fix all the OpenSSL issues for you, so don't worry about it, right?
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty big ask to me, but
I mean, it depends on the company. Like Datadog, like we have a lot of like C++ people. So like if we really wanted to, like we probably could have like a fork of OpenSSL or things like that to like extend things longer if we really valued that enough.
right.
It's like
It's not impossible. I mean,
Yep.
Red Hat does that. We support OpenSSL for much longer than
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's like if there could be like a more open effort, like companies like Red Hat or Datadog or any of these that are like, yeah, like we want this like older version of OpenSSL to be supported longer, and we want that to be supported within Node for longer as well. Like there might be
I think
benefits.
like that's a very good, like that is an interesting topic. And the way I think I would come at it if I had resources to try and to invest would be like try and pull together the people who would be interested in doing like an extra year of LTS, right? And commit to do that, and then ask the project for help. Like not that the project would commit to that extra year necessarily, but like you could have a, just to start, right? Like, here we want to have an extra year of support, and we're going to continue, you know, so we'd still like, say, the community project to run CIs and you know, maybe publish releases somewhere slightly different or something, but you know, the actual work will come from a different group of collaborators and make that happen. And then if that was successful, you could see over time being able to say, well, like, hey, maybe we should integrate this into what the project actually delivers. And
yeah. One thing that's so I've been looking a bit at like ECMA membership stuff recently, and one thing that's interesting about ECMA is like within that ECMA community, like everyone knows each other by name, but externally, like the members are the companies, and it's visibly that. And so like you can see like, yeah, Apple is a member of ECMA, Google's a member of ECMA. Like these companies
yeah,
are benefiting from that name being there, and like I think it'd be helpful if we had like a little more of that. Like I other aspects of ECMA I don't want to really
Right.
just that like having a bit more visibility on the companies that our contributors are coming from, and like the amount of investment that they are making would make it like more compelling for these companies to invest even more. And like in an effort to like, yeah, trying to extend the LTS ranges or something like that. Like that's a like relatively large effort that you'd probably need like a bunch of people working on different things, people ensuring that like V8 is supported beyond its normal life cycle, ensuring OpenSSL is supported beyond its normal life cycle. And like that is a thing that like we could bring a couple of companies together to achieve that. And like if we had a little more visibility of companies interested in projects like this, not just individuals, then if it's presented as like, yeah, like this list of companies wants to do this, then like the other companies in the list are going to look at that list and be like, oh yeah, there's like some like money actually going into this. Whereas if you list like, oh yeah, there's like these 5 people, who knows who they work for, that are interested in doing this, companies are gonna be like, I don't know who that is.
That's why I was kind of thinking it would almost be like, hey, this group is coming together to provide this versus just saying, let's like this just to try and extend the existing LTS cycle, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's actually an analog to that in Linux. I mean, I saw some articles on, there's a Linux long-term support kernel version. And so there's like a separate group that works on supporting that kernel. They pick a kernel every so often and it becomes the long-term support one. And there's a different group of people who, I don't know if it's a different group of people, but like it's messaged as there's a different group that keeps this longer-term kernel thing going.
Yeah. Yeah, it's if we had like that sort of thing, like I mean, I don't want to be like quite at the level of like, yeah, LTS 22 sponsored by Mountain Dew or something, but
Right.
like,
Yep.
just like having it like at least like a little more visible that like this LTS exists and will like continue to be supported for this length of time thanks to this company, or like this group of companies or whatever.
Right. And yeah, I don't know. It's I like that's the kind of thing. If somebody came in and said, hey, let's work on, if somebody came and said, I want to champion this concept, let's move it forward. It's something, I think is interesting. And I could explore, say, Red Hat being part of that group, but like it's what are all the companies that are going to put the dollars in and people in particular to make that happen? Yeah. We do often hear the challenge of like, yeah, it's people are using older versions, but on the flip side, it gets harder and more time consuming to keep something going.
It's I think somewhat of a like chicken and egg sort of situation where like you're not going to attract the companies to invest in it until like they can see that there's some visibility in investing in it, but there's not going to be any visibility in investing in it until someone's investing in it. So.
Yeah, I also worry a bit like some companies will be like, oh, that's nice to have that for free. Right? Like if just everybody benefits, are people really going to come and spend the money to make it happen? Because I think a little bit like you said, yeah, if people were more active in the community, they could certainly have trended more active maintenance versus less active maintenance kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's all I think like communication and like public perception sort of thing. Like it's like what like I don't think we're actually really doing much to communicate outside of the project. That like, yes, we have this LTS window, but it's hard for us to do this. Like we don't actually communicate that like this is a thing that is a lot of work for us to do. And it's like it's not clear that like out like to anyone outside of like the contributor base that's like we would actually benefit from more people working on this?
Yeah, I don't know how
It,
we get the message out there to people.
I mean, just like we need to make it more clear that like it is the window that it is because that's the resources that we have, and that like, but like more importantly than that, like make it clear that like we do want it to be longer, we just don't have the resources. So like anyone willing to help, please come and help us. And like it would be helpful to have like continuous like I don't know like volunteer drive or something to just like
Right, yeah.
like we need more volunteers to keep this running. Please come help us. Or like talk to the different companies. Like please come and help us. We need people to work on these things.
Yeah, I think that one, I think we just need somebody who's really energetic and willing to try and drive something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I've over the years spent time trying to talk to like, hey, what would it do to get Google and Microsoft more involved? And I'm just thinking we need somebody who's has somebody fresh to the fight, maybe is the nice way to put it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we've got a few of our like newer contributors that I feel like could be helpful there.
Yeah, if you can think of reaching out to them, and it's because I think that's one of our big challenges is the individual features. Like you said, we can have a feature or not have a feature, and like unless it's a feature we think that's gonna that's critical to Node continuing to be widely used. But the maintenance stuff just has to happen, right? And if it doesn't happen, or if it just barely happens, it's not as great as it could be.
Yeah. Yeah, we just need to sell it better.
Yeah, so that's what this whole issue is about. If you have good ideas, you can throw things in there, and it's like figuring out what is it like. Even I guess one of the thoughts was going and talking to the members was like, hey, what would be, is there something that, what would it be that would help you invest more, or send your people to the project to get involved, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm working on making that argument internally at Datadog, so I think probably at least some of that will translate externally. So
yeah, if you come with a, hey, here's a story, here's what worked, right? Like that, I think would be a good story, and then we could figure out, can we reproduce that story, right?
Yeah. It would, I think, be useful to talk to Bloomberg, since like they seem to already be doing that with Igalia. It's like if we can reach out to them somehow and like get them to say like, oh yeah, we like focused on these like particular pain points that like Bloomberg specifically was having problems with, and like we solved it in this particular way.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting one in terms of that model, where it's companies like Igalia obviously has marketing, or they must spend some effort in getting that, lining up that support, right? So that's a model of, the company doesn't send their own people, but they've been convinced that it's worthwhile for them to invest dollars.
Yeah. And like I mentioned before, like investing like dollars directly doesn't really help us too much, but like going through an organization like Igalia could like help us. Like we could probably have like we could probably make some sort of like arrangement with Igalia and like Nearform as well. Of like we'll send some people your way in theory. Like we mention them and we can tell people like, oh yeah, if you want to support us, then pay these people to work on Node Core. It's in some cases, like bigger companies, it's a lot easier to argue like, oh yeah, we want to like allocate like entire people or like teams of people to
Right.
work on a particular thing. But there's also like medium-sized companies that like it's a lot harder to allocate like actual people to a thing, but they might have the dollars that can help.
Well, even in the large companies, the conversations we've had is they can't do it in a sustained manner and reward their people.
Yeah.
It seems like people get measured based on things that maybe have a more direct relationship to the core business, which then has a feedback loop, right? Like if you're never going to be, if somebody says, yeah, you can go work on this, but you're never getting promoted, that doesn't tend to work long-term either, right?
Yeah.
But through a company whose business is consulting, that's totally different, right? You will get promoted for being busy and doing the work. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting, even like partnering with some companies who want to build that business somehow. I wonder if that's even it's an interesting thing. Any other thoughts on that one?
I think we've gone through mostly everything.
Yep. Okay, on the metadata proposal for docs, update on this. I think this is still in Claudio's backlog, but update. These retros from the Club Summit, I don't think still in progress. And the create the communications channel to the periodicals. So no, I know Ulysses, there were some conflicts recently. Was that like tooling related that you fixed or just
I think there was a conflict. Yeah, I think it was a conflict with when I was on holidays. I think when it merged, it didn't remove the branch or something, but I solved that already. I think there had been some maybe interesting discussions, I think led by Wesley, if I remember well. I think I saw some issues about that. So I'm not 100% on all of the suggested, but I saw some issues regarding that. So let me share here in the links. I saw this issue. They were suggesting to use this tool from BNB, which actually generates some retros like this one. So you have this Markdown example. I think one idea there was like just to mention this. So on the cron job that we have every week, we can just search for the last entry on this Qt retro weekly repo and add it to the feed. So that can be easy done. But I think it's super interesting there. But I was not aware of this. But yes, it seems okay because you have a lot of what's going on, in terms of pull requests, open discussions. I think they are not very sure yet because I didn't check out the code, like what are the criteria for building this.
Right.
But I think it's a really good summary of what's going on, more or less, at least for the groups that I'm involved on, like in the security working group or or other groups, I can see a lot of related stuff. So I think maybe worth to check if we want to include that, because I think it's a really good summary.
Yeah, okay.
Or maybe we
that
can even
sounds
digest
good.
it and, just parse the markdown and include that in sections, like items inside of the RSS news. So you have a better way of consuming it already inside. And we can explore that. But yeah, the first step for sure, we can put just a link.
Yeah,
So
something.
like,
Yeah, I know you're right. Like a post that says like, "Hey, here's something that there's another one summary that I'm on an email message from that we might ask about as well." Because like, yeah, if there's some summaries being generated, helping to promote those would be probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Anything else on that one we should chat about this week? I know we still need to reach out and figure out, like, I think we've had some ideas, but haven't really had progress on, like, how do we socialize it more to like news organizations, that kind of thing. But
yeah, I'm not very sure if we want to generate automatic tweets or something like that. I mean, we can explore if the API is still working on that direction. Not very sure what happened with the last changes since the last time I used the API of Twitter, but maybe we can see that. But I think time ago we suggested the idea of automating the release post, like just making automatically on Twitter. And I think the feedback from the social team was like, it's not the best idea. So maybe we can find a good option. Maybe we can just propose tweets so they can just approve it, or something in that direction might work, So yeah, so there's some options for human change and human approval and human rejection of this is not relevant, or this is cute, but let's put something more with emojis, or I don't know, something that is easier.
yeah, I
need to
don't
find
think we
out
really have a social team anymore. It's the foundation that manages the Node.js Twitter account. But yeah, like you're thinking if we could propose like a once a week, that makes sense, a once a week tweet or something.
Yeah, something like that. Just build a proposal markdown and send it by email or something like, hey, check out these last suggestions from the tool. And
right.
see if something like that we want to move on promote.
Yes, it would be like, would there be a way to say like, here's the last week's, what's on the feed from the last week, and then tweet that out, like a link to that somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible to have like a web rendering of the feed that's just for the last week?
I think it's possible. Maybe not by parsing directly the RSS or JS. I don't know. We can use GitHub pages for sure. So we don't have to have an infrastructure, that's for sure. So maybe we can just build a JSON format of the last relevant news and then just, render that, like doing an Ajax call and using some old school HTML and CSS and so on, and just render as a first approach, and then maybe ask someone to help us with the styles and make it something more, aligned with the project. But yeah, we can start with a very basic HTML render and see if people see value in it, and then, make a beta version with the branding and so on.
I think that'd be cool. Like if we had like a summary thing, and we could then, the ask to say, I think it would be manual, but can you manually tweet out this link? Like, hey, here's your Node.js summary, and at the bottom, like I think we'd want on that page to say like, here's all the new stuff. Oh, and if you want the live feed, here's where you can subscribe to the live feed, and here's
Yeah, definitely we can have these certain social media buttons, because I think those are like predictable URLs. So it's like twitter.com/whatever, and you have the message. So you just click it and then you appear in the interface with a pre-populated model.
Right.
So I think we can try to build something like that. People can consume, treat it, and
it could even be the same URL every time, I think you're saying, right? Okay, and it just auto updates for the next week. Yeah, I think that'd be quite cool.
Well, we build it as a static site, and if we get a lot of nodes on the HTML at some point, we can just reduce the last 6 months or whatever, so you can have like infinity to scroll or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
I can work on something like that. Or
Okay.
find help for
That'd be
that, so
cool
yeah.
because I think like an auto tweet we're probably, yeah, like I'm not even sure the tools work, but if it was like once a week or once every 2 weeks, hopefully at some interval we could ask for a tweet and it would make sense. So yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds like a good next step in terms of the taking the feed, and then that's a way to advertise the feed, right? Is in like,
Yep.
hey, and okay. Sounds good. Just take I'm just gonna put some. Okay, now that sounds good. And I see that we're pretty much at time. So I think at this point, thanks for everybody's watching on the live stream, and thanks to everybody who's here for the great conversation. We will see you next time.